Hey,
Yeah.
we are live. Good afternoon, Ngozi Talk Shows family. It's Nomsa here at Ngozi Talk Shows. Find your own voice, lead from within. So with me today, I'm with Amanda Murray and Grant Morel. How are you guys?
All right.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So our topic today is how to cope with grief and stop fighting life. And have you ever felt overwhelmed by grief, unsure of how to move, not unsure how to move forward, as if life itself is an unfair battle? So today we're going to cover some experiences or some tips on how you can cope with grief. And remember as well, grief is a process and it affects people in different ways. So there is no easy way to grieve. There's no right way to grieve. But the only experience is when you go through that experience. That's when you know the right way, when you tell us after. So that's what we're going to cover. What do you think about the topic, Amanda?
I think it's a really important topic because everybody at some point in their life goes through grief, and it could be like for my in my life last year it was when we had to put our cat down, and that was like a cat that we had for 12 years, and it was my daughter's like little bestie, and that was a really hard piece of our life to have to let go of. And so I know that grief comes in different forms, and sometimes it can be the loss of a relationship, or it could be the loss of a loved one, or it can even be the loss of a pet. And that's something that people, when they first go through it, they sometimes don't have the best coping skills, and it can feel very overwhelming and like all consuming. And so there's definitely ways that you can cope with it, but it also is like you have to just not like push it down and and not allow your body to feel it, not allow those emotions to come through, because when you do that, then it gets stored in your body and shows up in different ways. So I think that coping with grief is really like recognizing when something that's happened in your life is really causing you a lot of despair, and not allowing you to flow the way that you were before that happened.
Yeah, I like that, Amanda. That's right. It is, like you say, it can be a blockage. And I suppose most of us have experienced grief at some point or another, whether it's personal to you. Grief can come in any forms. It can come in the forms of a passing, a bereavement. It can also become in the bereavement of a relationship, very much so. I remember many years ago, I had a relationship that split up, and I was very, very depressed. And I went to the doctors, and he said, "Oh, you're suffering with bereavement." And I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. She didn't die. She just left." He said, "No, no, no, that's bereavement." That's the same thing. And I said to him, "No, no, she's alive." He said, "I know that is still bereavement. It's still a passing." And I said, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah, yeah. It's the same symptoms." And it is. And there are different kinds of grief. You can have grief from missing a person, a job. You can suffer grief if you have go to travel to some wonderful foreign land and you leave and you come back. You still grieve. You can grieve the life, as you said, of a pet. It can be of a person. It could be of someone you've met fleetingly. Recently, I've suffered a bereavement of a close family member, which is a very certain type. And there's parents, there's siblings, there's children who can die. There can be relations, and they all have a different dynamic. Each experience of grief is different to the other. There may be some similarities. There may be some borrowed experiences and learnings, but they can be unique. But also, you can grieve many things. You can grieve an experience. Sometimes as you grow up, you look back at, I don't know, the family parties, be that for you Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, whichever your religion is, New Year. And as you grow up, your dynamic changes. You become adults. You have your own families, your own life. You move to a different home. You have a, those times you had can never be quite the same. Never quite the same. You can feel the loss of those, and that can you can feel grief from that. You can have pleasant experiences. You can also miss them because you know they will never come back quite the same form. These are all phases of us moving through life. This crazy experience we call life on this earth, and this is the way we deal with it. And that's the way I look at grief. Nomsa, you've got a great take on grief. What do you think?
I like you guys the way you say grief comes in different forms. Like you made me laugh, Grant, when you say you went to the doctor and the doctor was saying about your ex that it's grief, and you were like, oh no, she's not gone.
She's alive. She just left me. Yeah.
She's alive. She just left me, and you didn't realize you were grieving.
Yeah.
Because you had lost.
That is bereavement.
Yeah, you had lost something precious in your life. It's something that you thought it was going to last for a very long time. And I just like the way you said it. It just made me laugh. Oh no, Doc is not. She's not going. She's and then you just corrected you. I was like, it's grief.
Yeah, it was funny. It was anything but funny at the time. But yeah. Then there's another point. You put distance and time between it, and it's been a long time. You know, I can laugh at that.
My daughter yesterday, she was grieving. She goes, Mommy, Daddy, my world has been turned upside down. So I was like, what is going on? She goes, I've just found out on internet that Santa is not real. And the tooth fairy is not real. And she goes like, but I thought it was real. And I said to Kayla, you are 9. I thought you knew it's not real. She was like, no, everything I thought the real Santa comes through the chimney, but the internet says otherwise. And I feel that my world has been turned upside down. And I've realized that every time the tooth fairy come, the handwriting of your tooth fairy is you, Mommy. So now I'm coming to terms with everything. That is not real. So I was like, okay, the tooth fairy is dead, the Santa is dead. And she kept saying my world is turned upside down. So my daughter is grieving, Grant. So yeah, and losing job as well. It's not just losing someone through death. It's losing a job or losing anything, something closest to you. Like Amanda said, they've lost their cat. It's just grief. Because when you have something in your life, you get to cherish that person or that animal, that pet. It becomes part of you. But when it's gone, now you have to cope living without it. So that means you're grieving. And some people don't realize that even with work, when you lose work, is grieving. Finances is everything is grieving. So now is how do you move forward? Amanda?
Yeah, you're right. There's so many different things that can cause grief in your life. And I love yours, Grant, about like to talk to the doctor and be like, oh, she's not. Like, but it's true. Like sometimes it is like it's a death to you, right? Because it's like, and I've had that feeling before too, because it's like when certain relationships end, and it could be a friendship, it could be an intimate partner. Sometimes it almost does feel like a death because it is like they're completely removed from your life, and that can take a long time to grieve and to try to navigate how you're feeling and how to move forward after that. And sometimes you don't make the best choices when you're in a grieving state, right? And so one of the things I would say first of all is to like allow yourself to feel, really just like feel it. Don't push those emotions down, because then you recognize your pain and you can journal about your pain and give yourself permission to grieve. It's actually what part of your healing process. And if you don't do that, it's going to show up over and over and over again. Another thing I would say is to lean on support networks so that you have somebody to call when you are in that like super anxious, depressed state of just like, I don't know what to do because of what I'm trying to cope with right now. And so reach out to loved ones, reach out to a friend. Even there's support groups for different things too. Like I know part of the grief in my life is around like removing people who have alcoholism issues. And so they even joining support groups for people that have gone through something similar to what you've gone through, I think is a really great step if you are trying to cope with grief, because as soon as you know that you're not alone, it's almost like that part of that grief goes away, because you're like, I'm not the only person going through this in the world. And sometimes when you are in that grieving state, it can feel like you're the only person in the whole world that is this happened to. And that's a really lonely, like depressed, stuck, dark feeling. And I know because I've felt that before. And then number 3 would be take care of your physical health as soon as you can. Like make sure you're eating nourishing foods, go get some exercise. Just I'm reading a book on the importance of exercise right now, and the research behind how exercise actually improves our brain and everything. And so when you're in this depressive state, it can actually help uplift your mood and really start to help you on the healing journey. And exercise, I think, is so key to our mental health. And in reading this book that I'm reading right now, it's about schools and the importance of it, physical education in schools, and then also into our adult lives as well, and this all the science behind it. But that part is so key to our mental health. And I don't think we realize how key exercise is to our mental health, especially when we're going through a state of grieving, because it's removes stress, it helps us remove stress, and it improves our mood. And it can be something as simple as going for a walk and just being in nature. Another thing would be to express your emotions and find ways to do that. So journaling, creating art, listening to music, all of those things are like tools to like allow your emotions to flow through you. And sometimes you just have to get it out all on the page. I know for myself, I went to someone for some of the things that I'm going through in my life, and she was like, write it all out, and then burn it. And I've done that numerous times in my life. But just sometimes you need that reminder, like just sit down, write it all out in a red pen because you're angry. And then like go and burn it. As soon as you've got it all and you've made sure it's all done, just go and like burn that emotion and like allow your soul to let it free. So I'm gonna stop there with some of my suggestions. Maybe you guys want to tap in on them. I have a few more, but I'll come back to them.
There's lots of them. How you do it, and you mentioned art. It's very interesting that one of my nephews is autistic, and we discovered recently that I was telling some funny stories over the years, and that is a great story I love about him. And when he was doing art, and it turns out he's pretty damn good at art. You know, he's pretty good at it. And sorry, I just got a sniff here, but he's pretty good at art. And we said, why don't you like take that up again, just as a hobby, just to to process thoughts, emotions, and stuff like that. And he's diligently just sitting there doing art. We haven't looked at any of his work. He's just doing it, and it helps him. Gardening is another thing, because you start to do beauty and start to grow things and see life, through flowers. And of course, it's an expression. It's also that wonderful thing you mentioned about exercise. I belong to I consult to a medical company. I'm one of the directors. Not that I'm from a medical background, but from a business viewpoint. And one of the guys who speaks there, he speaks all about diabetes. And he's a great advocate for diabetes. He's from the Afro-Caribbean community, and they be more prone to this. And what he says is, go and do things. And he's never taken medication for what he does. It's always just careful diet and exercise. But what he says is, he doesn't use the word exercise. I'm just going to turn my camera off for a second. Okay. Yeah. just a little bit of bandwidth for him. So he doesn't use the word exercise. He says, don't call it exercise. He said, you say exercise and people get scared. They think they've got to go to the gym and pump iron, and they just don't do it. He said, just damn well call it activity. He says, get off your rear end and walk up the stairs, unless you're disabled, obviously. He said, walk upstairs 8 times a day. Purposely leave things upstairs and forget them, so you have to go back and get them. Go and do some gardening. He said, that's activity. Just get activity in your life, he says. And that's the way he describes it, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And of course, gardening is therapeutic. As I say, you start to see life growing in front of you. You start to breathe new life into things. You have to tender things. You have to nurture. You see the development throughout the seasons, which represent the seasons, and you're moving things about. You're bending down. You're standing up. You're stretching. You're getting some. Well, let's call it exercise. He would call it activity. It's a more gentle thing. Walking to the shops, walking in nature. It's all activity. Just go and do it. And as I said in the past, one of the things I became really interested in was, I mean, we will go into this maybe another day, was the blue zone living, people in communities that tend to live over 100. There's a high population of people live over 100. One of the things I noticed is that they don't have a lot of modern conveniences. When they're washing clothes, they're probably doing it by hand. They're making food. Well, yeah, they are making food. Not like, hey, I'm making chicken. Well, tell me how you can make chicken. I'm really not sure how you can ever make chicken. You can cook chicken, but I think they create themselves, or they're created by someone else. But people say they're making a pizza. Oh, you're making it, or you're just taking one out of a packet and putting it under the grill? Yeah, you're cooking. But a lot of these people, they create things from scratch. So they're bringing sacks of flour, they're slamming it on the slab, they're kneading dough, and they're chopping ingredients and going to the garden, pulling out potatoes and chopping. They're making things from scratch. There's a lot of just general, gradual, manual movement, which is very good for releasing stress. Now, I was wandering a bit, I apologize, but years ago when I had this relationship that went wrong, I said this before, I didn't read any books on this, and fortunately, I had to find a way out of grief myself. And my sister remembers being very worried about me at the time. And I was, really in a bad way. But I discovered a formula for getting out of grief, I think. And I've helped other people with this formula since. I naturally took myself to the gym. I'm not really a gym bunny. I'm not that kind of guy who goes to the gym. I'm not. But I went to the gym. And, pumped a bit of iron, did aerobics, which was like the thing in those days. I was just doing whatever I did just to basically burn it off, burn that adrenaline off. And it was good. It helped me to process things. It helped me to work things off. It gave me a routine. It gave me a sense of purpose. It got me to tune into myself. And as vain as it was, and it was vain, my body started changing shape and I started admiring myself, a bit egotistically, if I'm really honest. And I knew I'm not that kind of guy, but I thought, this is weird, but it's kind of working. It's making me feel a better version of shit than I was feeling before. So, this is feeling better than it did before. So for right now, I'll go with this. This is kind of useful, I thought, and I worked with it until I started getting a bit of self-love, a little bit of self-appreciation through. And once I felt better, I didn't need it anymore. And I just went to normality. I like to just get activity, move about, walking around and do that. That's the kind of guy I am, rather than pumping iron. But I did it for a while, and it served its purpose for me, because you are burning off adrenaline. And you're burning off cortisol, which is not good stuff to have. So it's good to get rid of it. So yeah, exercise is good. But Nomsa, have you experienced this? Do you know people who've experienced it? What about exercise? What about nutrition? What do you think? Are you?
I agree with you and Amanda. Eating healthy is very, very important because everything is what we consume. So if we consume good food, it helps us to think. There's some food like Um, garlic is good for your brain. Olive oil is good for your brain. Ginger is good for your brain. Lemon is good. There's a list of them, the things that you can eat. Cheese, that you can eat, and helps you to actually think, stay focused as well. And there are some vitamins supplement that can help you to stay focused. And physically activities, walking, like gardening. Grant, you can't beat gardening. Yeah, gardening is really, really good as well. It's a good therapy. And or if you can't go to the gym, or just go walking, um, just walk. It does help out as well. And also, avoid people that you talk to. I would like to say talk to people, but avoid. There are some people, when you talk to them, they want you to grieve in a certain way. They give you advice on how to do it. But grieving is a process that person has to find it themselves by every single day, because you go to different stages of them, but you can't give somebody advice and say this is how you grieve. You just have to be there to listen to them. Find people, like Amanda was saying, focus group where people have gone through the pain that you're going through. And those people, when they talk, because they listen, what you need is somebody that will just listen and be there for you, not telling you what to do, and just let you grieve when people don't get fed up with you. There's a guy, he lived next door. He lost his dad a year ago. Every time I see him, the only thing he didn't do was cry. Like, he will be like talking, like going over and over. I just give him a hug. When I see him, I know what he needs. He just need a hug. I'll give him a hug, and now listen. And I've noticed that slipping away now. He's talking less of it. It's just come to a point where now is embracing the memories that he had with his dad. So it's still there, but now when I speak to him, he talks about, it's no longer crying inside, is like talking about the memories and how he's coping things. You can see that he's doing it in his own way. Because for me, I was very, very clear where we stand. I was like, yeah, when you're grieving, you're going to have to, I'm afraid. Because he was like, how did you cope with you losing your dad? And I was like, it was tough. But with you, you are individual. You're going to have to find your own way. And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you'll find it through that breakthrough. But it looks like he is finding it. So yeah, it's something that we need to not to blame ourselves. Because some people, they blame their feelings or how they feel. They're like, why am I feeling this way? Why that person don't feel the way? But that's the process. And also the memories. Try to revisit the memories that you spend with that person. Try to use them for, if you want to cry, have pillows and sticks. Guys, I have pillows and sticks. They help a lot. When I feel, I buy pillows and I've got sticks. I've got a stick. I'll show you. I will show you my stick. Amanda, right. Do you want to take over?
Pillows and sticks. Let's hear about it. I want to see this. I want to see it.
I went to
some sort of game you play at college or something.
I'll show you my sticks.
I went to a retreat before that was about dealing with your childhood trauma, and they made you beat pillows with sticks. For
that's what. Yeah, I'm aware of. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I see. Yeah,
it was, and it didn't really work for me. That wasn't a strategy that worked for me, but it did work for some other people.
Yeah. I'm aware of the process. I just didn't understand what you was doing with the pillows and sticks. Okay, yeah.
Eating the
That's
pillows.
My stick. Yeah, smash pillows. Whenever I'm sad, if I'm really, really sad, to smash pillows, and it feels good.
That is one hell of a stick, Nom. So it looks to me like you've got a fair bit of beating to do there.
It feels good. It feels good.
Yeah, it's good. I know someone who did this therapy, and it was
Really?
yeah, and he said they kind of buddied up with someone, right, to debrief it. The weirdest thing was that the guy, which is purely going by coincidence, was beating the stick, and it was about the grief of his ex-girlfriend.
Mhm.
Except it transpired that this person's ex-girlfriend was his buddies who he was debriefing with, his current wife. And he's like, this is awkward. This is why only in conversation it wraps out her name and where she lived. What's her name? And what's your name? Like, oh, okay. Yeah, but that was strange. But yeah, I remember after a course we did, and they was telling me about this therapy. We didn't do it. They was after a course we was talking about various courses we had all been on. The conversation came up about this. But yeah, it's a good thing to do that. I think, as you say, it works for some people, not for others. I've personally never done it, so I don't know. But
I just do it. It helps a lot. It's like you feel this relief because you're getting out the frustration. You feel this relief of joy after you've done it. And you are like, oh, what's the heck with life?
Yeah, I was saying, Nomza, that I was at a retreat when you went to get it, and that was one of the things we did, I think, for like an hour or two each day. And for me, that wasn't a strategy that worked, but it was definitely one that worked for other people. And that was the one strategy that they took away from that retreat. That was like their number one way to release. And like I said, it didn't work for me, but other things worked for me. Like actually my biggest one is like going to the gym or going for a run or something like that. That helps me more than beating a pillow with a stick. I just can't get into it that way. But other people it absolutely can. And like you were saying, Grant, it becomes like the pillow becomes like this anger towards whatever it is that's happened in your life that's been really stuck inside your body, and something that you're trying to like release, and you have no other appropriate way to deal with that anger. And when it comes out like that in a setting where it's designed for getting rid of all of the stuff that you have stuck inside of you, it can be really, really effective. And it was one that, like I said, I was like looking around and being like, I don't think this is working for me. I was like, I'm doing this wrong.
Emotions as well, Amanda. You got to be in it. Your emotions got to be get angry with that pillow.
The one
you
was
see,
not a strategy that worked for me, and that's okay.
you could have taken your frustration out on the pillow, saying this damn pillow therapy isn't working.
That's basically it, because there's probably like 40 people in the room, and some of them were like just screaming and like yelling, and I was like looking around and I'm like, this is not working for me. This is
is
not.
is is this a derivative of primal scream therapy?
I'm not
Is it?
sure. I'm not
I
sure.
think it is actually primal
Yes,
scream. Yeah,
yes, it is.
it is it not? Yeah. But you know, when you go through grief, there's of course there's many theories, but there's a general 5 stages that it is proposed that there's 5 stages to grief. So if anybody out there on social media listening or later on is here and you're going through grief or you're wondering, there's these proposed 5 stages that you may be going through. It's often thought that they come in this order, but it's again proposed that they may not necessarily come in this order. But denial is one. It hasn't happened. Carrying on like it hasn't happened. This happens a lot. Very understandable, because sometimes things are so horrible to take in, you just gloss over it. It hasn't happened. I lost a family member once, and if they're listening, I know, yeah, they passed, but they'll know what I'm saying. When I made a cup of tea, I felt really selfish making myself a cup of tea. So for 3 days after their passing, I made a cup of tea with their mug, a mug for me and a mug for them. Now I knew that was crazy, I was saying to myself, this is crazy. But it just felt too selfish not to do that. And for 3 days, every time I made myself a cup of tea, and made them one too, and cheers. I said that. It's what I did to get through it. After 3 days, I didn't need to do that. I just kept the cup at the side and gradually moved on. But denial is the first stage. It's recognized to be. And again, they may not always necessarily come in this order. Deny that grief has happened. Okay, carrying on. The other one can be bang, bang, bang. Anger. Why? Why did this happen? Anger with God, anger with the person. It's someone else's fault. Blame. Anger can be a stage of grief. The other one is bargaining, coming to terms with it. You know, trying to rationalize it, bargain it. I do this sometimes. I think if someone passes away, it helps me to understand almost the engineering behind it. So what caused the death? I used to be a private investigator, so sometimes I need to close the loop. What went wrong and what effect did that have on that? And it went, so okay, that makes logical sense now. It's not some grand conspiracy to take this person away from me. It's not some horrible thing. It's not bad karma. It's just a mechanical thing. My father, a very practical man. When I was a very young man, my grandfather passed away. And I was upset. And I said to my dad, Dad, why did Granddad have to die? And although my father was upset, he said to me, no point in upsetting yourself about it, son. His body just wore out. It's as simple as that. He said, just like, my old car, the engine got old and wore out. I said, yes, same as him. His engine just wore out. There's nothing more to it than that. Don't upset yourself. Besides, son, life's a dangerous game. No one gets out alive. He said, if it's not one thing, another thing's going to take it. No one survived it yet, so make the best of it while you're here. And he had a very down-to-earth, practical way of making something that seems so intangible, tangible, and logical, and real. And his down-to-earthness really helped me. He had what I call the very common touch to just put his hand on your shoulder. Hey, it's the most normal thing on earth. He was upset. He was grieving, but he had rationalized it. You could say he had bargained with the thing at that stage. From denial, anger, and bargaining, you could have what took me to the doctors all those years ago, depression. I was depressed. The world felt like the light had gone out. Things weren't the same. The world definitely looked darker. The shops looked different. The clothes didn't have the same touch. TV, it seemed when you're looking at TV, they were talking about it. They weren't. You're looking for meaning in things. I was clearly very depressed. But as I say, by doing things like Amanda said, like exercise and diet, and talking. God, I would talk. I like your neighbor Nob. I would talk it through, talk until my brain was tired. And eventually some parts fell in place and I started to make sense of all the madness. And once you've then gone through depression, you then get to acceptance. It is what it is. It just is. And you just accept things for what they are. These are the recognized 5 stages, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. As I say, it's often said that they come in that order, but it's often said that sometimes they don't. And I think so too. When I watch people, I can see where they are at the very beginning. They may have skipped 1 or 2 stages and gone to the other one. But usually as I say, you rattle your way through all of these emotions at some point until you finally resolved it in your mind and got to a sense of acceptance. That's what I think. Have you guys experienced this, or are you familiar with that at all? Nobs or Amanda?
Oh yeah, I think you have to. I agree with you, Grant. You have to everything in life we give a meaning. Sometimes, like myself, like if I know what I know now, if I was to lose my loved ones with my dad, it took me years and years of grief because I didn't know how to live without him. So he was the only thing that I have ever known, him and my mom. But if I was to lose my mom now I know how to grieve properly. I just celebrate. For me, I just go and buy my dance music, the things that she loves to do, and we just dance it together and just send her off. But I think everything you have to give it a meaning. Sometimes when we lose those we love, sometimes we ask God, God, if you are there, why would you let it happen? And but the thing is, sometimes it's not God's way to go. There's so many diseases that are going on at this minute. And you have Satan as well himself. If Satan decide to take a life, they can take a life just like that. So if I don't know what I know now, for me, I'll be crying. I'll be doing so many things. I think you have to, for me, is honor the person that you love and not ignoring, because sometimes people try to ignore their feelings, what they are feeling. Me, when I'm hitting pillows, it means I am aware of what I'm going through. I'm not trying to ignore the feelings, and I'm trying to hit them out. So I sweat them out. And when I'm finished sweating them out, now I have to speak to God now and say, God, how do I move forward? I cannot do this on my own. Because if I do it on my own, whatever would take me one day, it would take me a year. So can you hold my hand and help me? So that's how I am able to move forward and honor that person as well, because that is very, very important to honor the person our loved one is lost, and gratitude as well. Being grateful of the life that person you spend with them, I think that is very, very important. And if you want to cry as well, not holding back. I find that crying sometimes it help. I don't cry a lot anymore. I used to cry a lot, but I don't cry. I think I do more talking. I talk up to my feelings. I let them know how I'm feeling. And I let them know that if they're making me feel uncomfortable, I let them know that I cannot go to that place of uncomfortable. And this is where I need to go. So I speak to them. I think most of the time when I'm meeting people, walking, passing through, people in town, they call me the lady with earphones. If I'm not, they don't see me, they worry, where is Nomsa? Sometimes, most of the time, people think I'm on the phone, but I'm talking to my feelings. Honestly, I talk to myself. I'm like, nope, not that way. No, 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 no. Not gonna think that way. Not today. So just find what works.
What a
Amanda?
brilliant idea. I love that. I love that because I often, sorry, my Wi-Fi is a bit choppy around. Yeah, I often have a little conversation with myself about things, but there is that danger that if you're doing that in public, you can look like the resident nutcase. So yeah, definitely the great thing is put some headphones in and no one will think anything different. Yeah, you've given me a brand new strategy for
Yeah,
processing.
earphones on. You're driving the car. No one can hear you. Just talk. Don't let the bad feelings take over.
And talk with impunity. Yeah, I like that. Good stuff. So, I know we've got just a few minutes left now. So
Amanda?
what have we learned? What have we learned here today when it comes to um, you know, how to cope with grief and stop fighting life? What have we learned just in the final moments?
I think definitely that exercise is really important, and surrounding yourself with people that are going to help uplift you and or even just sit in your grief with you, because I think sometimes that's really important too, is to not just say like, oh, life will get better. Be like, wow, that's really hard, and allow that person to feel those feelings, because I know so often the other person gets uncomfortable with those like feelings of sorrow, right? And they're like want to try to make it better quickly, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just like, I'll sit with you in this space. I know that it's hard, and that's okay, right? And so one of those things that we have learned is that exercise, taking care of your physical health, eating healthy, beating some pillows if that works for you.
This baby.
Good strategy is going to be different for other people, right? Not the same for everyone. But join a support group, reached out to loved ones, really allow yourself to feel and allow those emotions to go through, and be aware of this 5 stages of grief, like Grant was talking about, and notice for yourself, be conscious. Am I in this stage right now? Okay, this is like a recognizable stage that it's part of the process. I'm not going crazy. It is like definitely a journey that almost everybody that goes through a grief process goes through, right? I know even for myself, when my cat passed away, I was in denial. I was like, she's not really gone. Like I could feel her energy in the house, and I really didn't want to accept that I had to put her down. And so even just for a pet, I know that that's not the same as losing a person, but they definitely something that comes to be so important in your life. And when you lose it, there really is a process to go through, and it takes time. And the fact that it takes time is okay. It's not something that changes overnight, that you can let go of those feelings. And sometimes even years down the road, something could happen, and it could bring back that grief that you thought you had healed from, and then you realize, whoa, I really got some work to do in that area, because I clearly, that thing that came up has brought it all back for me. And why is it that I haven't processed that yet? And really allowing yourself to just be conscious of it, and to navigate it, I think is a really important step as well, because somebody could have passed away 20 years ago, or a relationship could have ended 20 years ago, and then something shows up in your life, and it brings all of those stuck feelings back, and it can be that you have to process it years and years later.
That's really nice. I like that, Amanda. I really like that. And it's
2 o'clock,
you know,
words of
some
encouragement, guys.
yeah, words of encouragement, which I just close with, is just to think that, definitely, yeah, if you're going through grief of any type, get out from those 4 walls if you can, and start to see the bigger world outside of you, and realize the world is way, way, way bigger than this grief, this problem that's in front of you. If you cannot get out, then if you can get internet access, go on YouTube and go on a virtual journey on that, and start to lose yourself in a movie, a film, the scenery like Nonce has got behind it. Start to see that the world is huge and magnificent and beautiful, with wonderful possibilities way beyond which we intellectually understand at this moment in time. Because I can guarantee you, when it comes to grief, we, as we sit here now, do not understand all the dynamics of this universe. Guarantee that. And there's more going on. There are more beautiful things going on behind the scenes. What have you learned from that experience? What have you learned from those people that you used to work with who you miss? That school, that college, that job, that wonderful foreign land that you used to live in, work, or your old bedsit that you miss, even though you've got a life with a family now. What is it you miss? What is it you could take from that sample, that slice, that takeaway, that learning, that person who's no longer alive in the physical sense? What can you take from that little keepsake, and have it with you every moment of every day, so that you could just trigger it and have it back as if it's just the same as it always was? What's that thing, that souvenir, if you will, call it that, to take away, to have with you, to encapsulate that it's always close to your heart? What's the lessons? What's the attributes of that person that you could take away and amplifying your life so that you can have the same impact on the world that they did, so that you keep their spirit alive by keeping their actions alive. What is it that you could do to take it with you? And finally, remember, when it comes to grief, if it is a grief of a person, that what a very wise friend of mine said recently, who's a very well-read person, who's an engineer, very well-read, but he's an engineer, so he's not holistic. And this was interesting. He said, remember Newton's first law of physics. And I can't remember it exactly, so I'll paraphrase the hell out of it. You can look it up. But it's that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It effectively just goes somewhere else. So if you think the person or that thing has gone, it's impossible. It can't go. It just transmutes. It just goes somewhere else. Any scientist, any physician will confirm that. And that's not holistic. That's not belief. That's not religion. That's physics. That's what makes the world go around. It just moves. In the same way, if you get that glass of water and you pour it on the ground, people say, oh, the water's gone. No, it's just gone on the carpet. In a recession, I say this as a business coach, people say, oh, there's no money around. Impossible. It's just gone somewhere else. Okay. It's just gone somewhere else. In fact, in a recession, governments print more money than ever before. There's actually more money. You just need to be like the waterfall and place yourself under the waterfall and capture the water. It's just gone somewhere else. And if someone parts this earth, they haven't gone. They've just gone in the physical sense. But as my friend said, you do realize, though, that we don't just exist in the physical plane. We exist spiritually as well. So they're still around you. They're still there. Think of them in exactly the same way. Take a little souvenir from who they were and embed that in your daily process so they're always close to heart. That's my takeaway. And that's the way we can make the world even better and fulfill our purpose as they did too. Nomsa, over to you.
I think that's Amanda, because we're closing up. Amanda, do you want to say your goodbyes?
I think this is a really great conversation, and it really, even though we're talking about grief, we're still able to laugh about too. And that's like, laughter is part of the journey of healing. So I think that laughter is a really great way to heal as well. And I really enjoyed the conversation today. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, Amanda. And for me, I leave you this one day at a time, step by step. That's grief. Take one day as it comes. Reframe your relationship with loss. See grief as part of love. Understand the nature of life. And know that don't compare your life with anybody else. Your grief, celebrate those small wins each day. Like when you pass through like the day, celebrate, get out of bed, celebrate. Everything is a celebration. And that's how, and don't forget Nomsa sticks. If things get tough, guys, this baby does the work. I don't get depressed or anxiety. This baby works. I don't know what works for you, but this one, it works. And so, yeah. And if you're watching us from YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and share our video. And also on Facebook, please subscribe and share. God bless and live with grace. Thank you so much, guys.